In lesson 89, we're going to look at vector decomposition. And so, remember, a vector is it's not a line, but it's a shape with a magnitude. It goes a distance, it's not a coordinate. It says decompose vector 2, 3. Well, if I broke that down, what that would look like is it goes 2 to the right and 0 up, and then 0 up, or sorry, 0 left to right and 3 up. This is the decomposition of this vector. So if I was to draw it, it would look like we would know that we would have, okay, let's say we were having a coordinate grid. All right, we already knew this line was to 2, 3. All right, so there's that vector. So if we are decomposing it, we have a 2, 0 line and a 0, 3 line. So we know those distances would be 2 and 3. And that's all you're doing when it's saying to decompose. All right, generally it's going to, this is all leading up to building triangles. So when we decompose vector 2, 3, the x and y components of the vectors are given. Now looking at, so this would be your answer. Now looking at B, this one says this has a 33-degree angle and a magnitude of 7. Well, once again, we are always talking about a triangle here. So what I'm going to do is draw my triangle. Now I always want to imagine connecting the triangle with the horizontal line. Okay? I want the hypotenuse to go to the origin in a sense, and then to go to the horizontal line, or the x-axis. The 33-degree angle represents this angle of elevation here. That's where the 33-degree angle belongs. What the magnitude represents is the hypotenuse. It's basically kind of the overall distance between the two vectors there that are, you know, or the overall vector. So when it says we want to, it says draw the vector, use trigonometry to find the magnitude of vector x. Okay, vector x and vector y. Okay, notice vector x is horizontal, vector y is up and down, a little vector sign. So to figure out x and y, all we're going to do is use trigonometry. So in TOA, to find x, I'm going, from 33, I'm going to need to use the adjacent and hypotenuse. So I'm going to say cosine of 33 equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Then I solve by multiplying by 7. So I type in 7 cosine 33 in my calculator and get 5.88 roughly. And then I need to find vector y. So from angle 33, or from the angle of 33 degrees, we have the opposite and hypotenuse. So I'm going to use sine, because sine of 33 would equal the opposite, being y, over hypotenuse, being 7. Multiply by the 7. So 7 sine 33 would equal 3.81. So those are your two magnitudes. So that's what it's looking for you to do when you are decomposing. We're going to look at one example here, or example 2. It's a little more, it's just adding on one feature kind of to vector decomposition. And it says to add these two vectors. All right, the two vectors are vector v and vector w. Now we're going to read about these two vectors. It says vector v has a magnitude of 4. Well, what's magnitude? That refers to the horizontal, okay? Or sorry, refers to the hypotenuse. and it makes a 25 degree angle with the horizontal. So once again, angle of elevation, it makes a 25 degree angle with the hypotenuse. And they're kind of looking at this from a coordinate grid standpoint. So here's my triangle. Magnitude, meaning my hypotenuse is 4. Just kind of drew that coordinate grid to show you why the triangle looks like that and not reversed. And once again, I'm going to need x and y. So in SOHCAHTOA, to find x, I'm going to use adjacent. Cosine of 25 equals adjacent over hypotenuse 4. Multiply by 4. 4 cosine 25 gives me 3.63. I'm rounding to the nearest hundredth. And then to do y, I need opposite over hypotenuse. So that would be sine of 25 equals opposite over hypotenuse. Multiply by 4. 4 times sine of 25, I'm going to call it 7, I'm going to call it 1.7. So vector x and y, if I'm calling them vectors, x and y are 3.63 and 1.7. So what I'm going to do is, right now I'm just going to leave that triangle. So we just did this one. Now we need to do vector w, because all this was vector v. So it says vector w has a magnitude of 7. So once again, hypotenuse is 7, and makes a 61 degree angle with the horizontal. So same looking triangle. We got to find x and y. So to find x, we're going to do adjacent over hypotenuse. Cosine of 61 equals adjacent x over hypotenuse 7. Multiply by 7. So 7 cosine 61. 3.4. Now we need y, so I'm going to do from 61 opposite over hypotenuse. Now I could do adjacent over hypotenuse, or I could do opposite over adjacent if I wanted to, but I'm going to keep it this way. Multiply by 7. .12. Alright, so now I have all my vectors. So now let's talk about the part where it says to add them together. What we're basically doing is combining, I don't know if this will make sense but in your head, but combining these triangles. We're trying to figure out, okay, what overall triangle do we get when we add these together? So what we're going to do is add my x values, or my horizontals, of 3.63 and 3.4 to get a new hypotenuse of 7.03. So when I add 3.4 and 3.63, I get a new, I think I said hypotenuse, I get a new horizontal of 7.03. Now I want to figure out my vertical. My vertical is going to be the sum of 1.7 and 6.12. And that will be 7.82. Now I can connect my triangle here, and I need to find my overall magnitude, what that vector would be, and I would need to find my angle that connects with the horizontal and hypotenuse. So my magnitude, all I need to do is Pythag. 7.03 squared plus 7.82 squared equals, I'm going to put m squared. So 7.03 squared is 49.42. 7.82 squared, 61.15. Add these two together. I get 110. I'm going to move it up here. 0.57 equals m squared. Now I need to square root it. And I get for my magnitude 10.52. It seems like a lot, all this, but it's just using what you already know. It's not a complicated process. It can just take a little bit of time. But you will use this a lot in Algebra 2. So you need to know how to be able to do this. And then to find theta, well, I can use tangent of theta, and that equals opposite, 7.82, over hypotenuse, 7.03. To get tangent by theta by itself, I do inverse of tangent. So inverse tangent is 7.82 divided by 7.03. Plug that in my calculator. And I get roughly 48 degrees. So my angle that I make with the resultant vector when I add them together is 48 degrees, and my magnitude would be 10.52. So that's how you add and decompose vectors.